Hello, my friends. Katie Day with the Move Me to Texas team here with another episode of the Real Advice podcast. I am beyond thrilled to welcome this week's guest to the podcast. She is nationally recognized as being just a powerhouse and leader in our industry, and her team has helped like over 3,500 people find homes and with their real estate needs. And her team has sold almost $2 billion in sales volume, which is crazy. That's billion with a B. She's a powerhouse when it comes to leading real estate teams. She's known for listing management, mindset, marketing, and so much more. So I know today is going to be a whole lot of different conversation around a ton of different topics because she is so very knowledgeable. Her team is based out of Virginia, and they service Virginia, Maryland, and West Virginia. Please join me in giving a huge, huge welcome to Carolyn Young. What's going on?
Thank you so much for having me, Katie. I really appreciate the introduction.
I'm so excited to dig in with you. I feel like I have followed you and your career for a while. And I'm just excited because I feel like there's just so many good topics we could talk about. So when we were kind of talking about what we were going to talk about, I was like, in my head, I'm like, all right, I've got to narrow this down to a few things, to a few key points. Because I feel like we could talk for hours about different things. But for someone who may not know you, how did you get into real estate?
So I've been in the market for over 30 years now, so it's been a while. But I think we met obviously through Tom Ferry. I've been in coaching with him for 6 years, but it's been the last 6 years that I've had a lot of growth in my business. So yeah, so it's been a while. I've been through several markets, several changes in the market. So
Yeah, for sure. So, okay, you've been in the real estate world for 30 years, right? And after 25 years, you decided to, 25-ish years, you decided to get into coaching. What was the
yeah.
catalyst that you were like, okay, this is now something that I need to do?
So, for me, because it wasn't a bad place because I was selling, maybe 40 homes a year averaging I had built my career up for
Yeah.
15 years to selling about 40 homes a year. And I did that for another, 10 years.
Yeah.
And then, I just kind of stayed there. I just figured that was my spot until I got inspired by being around so many great people at a Tom Ferry event I attended. And I'm like, wait a minute, these people are doing some crazy things and I have that capability, but I'm just not, ever really thinking that I could reach that far. So as I joined into the whole ecosystem and the network, for me, it was just knowing that really the limits to anybody is what the ability is of what they're willing to put in. So I just went all in. And I guess in the past 6 years, I actually just did a slide with Tom about my whole career. It's been a 1,600% growth in the past 6 years, so which is kind of
So
crazy.
yeah, no. Oh, and that's what, like, you said when you were an individual agent and you were doing your thing and, selling 40 homes and selling 40 homes. And like, that's a great accomplishment, especially for, you as an individual agent, right? Like that's amazing. But before we hopped onto the podcast, you said your goal for next year is 750 homes for the team.
Yes, I might as well have another 150% increase next year. So
No, but I love it, right? Like, I think for so many people, when you're doing your thing and you have your head down and you're working, you just kind of get into that, mode and you don't necessarily realize that you're on a plateau or that there's something bigger out there, and then when you talk
exactly
to someone
right.
that says that, their goal for the year is 750 homes, and you said you'll probably sell, 70 to 80 homes just on your own, that's just so awesome. I love that. Um,
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's kind of like when you're just working away, you just sometimes you don't know, but just keeping yourself open to possibilities and what others are doing to be successful and applying it, can change anyone's life.
Well, and so going back, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, as you were kind of scaling, right? So going from 40 to selling hundreds of homes, right? To now where your goal is 750. What were some of the things that you did in order to increase the amount of homes that you're selling, right? Because like now selling hundreds of homes per year, right? You guys have to have more lead sources, you have to have more systems. Like, so what were some of the early things you did to go from that 40 to, 100?
So yeah, for me, it was really the main thing was changing the mindset of what's possible,
Hmm.
right? That I could do this. And then, and it was figuring out by hiring, getting a coach, which I'm connected with Jeff and we work really well together. Um, the first thing I put mainly it's just picking up the phones and being on the phones because I've worked a lot of, you're a past client. That was just past clients. And so
Yeah,
I had to develop more pillars of business. So, and
for
for
sure.
me, I was frugal with money. I didn't want to spend money to grow. So I did it, by picking up the phones and making calls. And then you start getting more business. I think the first year I doubled in business, a little more than doubled. And then, and then I hired a couple agents to come on to teach them what I'm doing and get them
Yeah.
doing it. And then we do it together. And it's just, you know, as you keep growing each year, you're adding more pillars to your business. So it's just been a lot of expansion, that's for sure.
Well, and that's something too, I think that is super smart, right? Because a lot of people will just say, oh, well, I'll just buy more leads. I'll just buy more leads. And the leads are out there, whether it's expireds or for sale by owners or, door knocking or different things like that, that are in theory more free, right? It's more sweat equity than check equity that you can
Yeah.
start to do. And I know expireds and your, listing consultations are top notch. And then once you start having more income coming in, then maybe it makes sense to spend money on leads. But, I think a lot of people will go, immediately and they're just like, oh, I'm just going to go buy leads. And they don't really have a plan other than spending money. So it's
Yeah.
cool that you guys were really working the phones and it's like, okay, now how can we continue to add more pillars to, help 750 people buy or sell in 2024? Um, Another thing that you mentioned was mindset, right? And understanding that like, your goals may be your goals today, but there's definitely bigger things out there, or there may be more that you strive toward. And I think, you've done a lot of different like physical things. Like, haven't you done an Ironman or a triathlon?
Yes, I have. As a matter of fact, I was doing those when I when I started coaching
Okay.
6 years ago. I had just finished. I actually did three of them in 1 year. So me and my son did them
My
together. I
God,
can't do just one. I have to go. I said if I'm trained, I might as well do more.
you're such an
Um, but
overachiever. I love it.
but we did three of them together. But then that training, there's just no way I could sustain that with business growth because that in
Yeah.
itself takes a lot of hours of time. So I scaled back and I still go to the gym, but I just do things a little bit differently because I can't.
But you don't run like a marathon a week or anything like you would have
No,
needed to
it
do to
takes when
train.
you're doing Ironman training, you're out on Saturdays for like 7 or 8 hours training, and it's just a lot of time, and it's fun. Honestly, it's one of those things that when I decide to retire or scale back on business, that's the first thing I want to start doing again because they're really a fun thing to do. So, but right now I can't do it. So.
Well, I often draw parallels to like to working out or to training for a competition. I've never done an Ironman. I can barely run 3 miles, let alone, 26.2 plus swimming and biking and all the things. But like I often compare, the things, the mental fortitude that you need to have to do something that sucks that you don't want to do. You wake up, you don't want to go work out, but like you have a triathlon in 60 days, like you just have to do it, right? And so
That's right.
a lot of the same things happen in real estate, right? Like, oh, I don't want to make my calls. I don't want to call my past clients. I don't want to do this. But like, do you want to continue selling homes? Well, like you need to. What are some things that you're coaching your agents right now around? Because I mean, it's definitely a tougher market with, inventory, with interest rates, with all of the things. And it's like we could sit here and talk about all of the shitty things that are happening, or we can get to work. So what are you kind of coaching your team on to keep them moving forward?
So I think, and because I've been through, Katie, the 2007 market, right? And
Yep.
I entered the market after the big crash in the late 80s. So,
Okay.
but the 2007 market, this is nothing compared to that. Like, you bought a home in 2006, like you're foreclosing or short selling. Like
Yeah.
that was a very, very tough market. Is this one tough, but people are still buying? What I'm seeing with my team members, and I'm telling them, is that what you did the last 3 years is not going to work this year.
For sure.
So it's changed. Interest rates are up. There's not that much inventory. So I think this market is demanding a higher skilled agent. And so you have to be maybe the follow-up, instead of 3 calls, it might be 20 calls. It might be having
Yeah.
good resources for lenders that can give them good programs to make the payment where they want to be. You just have to be much more, it requires more client care, more skill, and a lot of follow-up in order to sell, probably 3 times as much as what you had to do last year.
Well,
So,
and that's the persistence is key to me, and I really like what you said. You said instead of calling 3 times, I think everyone thought you were going to say like you've got to call 4, you've got to call 5. You said 20,
yeah,
right? So instead of
yeah,
3 times, you have to call 20, and so that mindset just in itself, I literally thought you were going to say like 4 or 6 or something like that, and you said 20, right? And so, I completely agree, and I found that even you mentioned like creative programs from lenders and stuff like that. Like I found that our lenders are reaching out to us saying, "Hey, we're going to offer free refis until 2025. So if rates go down, they can refi if they want to buy today. We're going to offer, this particular rate lock or this particular buy down from now through the end of the month, or from now to help us give our clients a little bit of a sense of urgency, right? And
exactly.
so if you don't have that type of lender partner, maybe it's time to either ask your lender that you're working with or find a lender that's doing that.
Yeah,
Because everyone is generally not selling as many homes, or it's taking a lot more work to sell the same amount of homes
yeah,
than it
exactly.
did over the past few years.
Yeah.
I really like that.
I agree. I agree. So having resources for them is just super important, and being more diligent, and you have to work a little bit harder. So, but that's okay.
For sure, for sure. And I think it's also one of those things that it's like you have to be willing to do the stuff that other people aren't willing to do,
Exactly.
the 20 follow-ups isn't generally something that people are willing to do. And so, we've always known that. We've always seen the charts of like, when someone follows up, most salespeople follow up like 0 times, then 1 time, then, whatever, then 5. And then like as you have more follow-ups, the amount of people that are actually calling that many times like diminishes so significantly, right? You need to be one of those people.
Yeah.
Um, as we talk about kind of being persistent and following up with leads and things like that, like what are y'all's, selling hundreds of homes a year, what are y'all's pillars today? I know you mentioned past clients. What are some of the other things that y'all do as a team, as far as your bigger lead pillars?
Yeah, so we and it's kind of crazy because I had put together a graph for Tom on our years and our lead pillars and how we've built them over the years. And my
Yeah.
lead pillar was just spirit, just my past client. And we went to, doing a lot of expired calls, and we still do those. But each year we've added more things. But now, we have so we have a Zoom room open for the team every morning so they can get on and prospect.
Okay.
Um, Everybody needs to get on there like an hour or two every morning and just, get your calls, make them out, because they can hear dialogue and we can share a lot of information. But by doing that, by having the power of everyone doing that together, I think it's super motivating for everybody. But we will do, everybody kind of picks like, what do you want your like 6 pillars to be this year? Like, do you want to be expired? Do you want to circle dial? Everybody, has online leads. Our big account is that we're Zillow Flex. Um, we've been doing that now for 2 years. And then a couple weeks ago, we just got seller connections.
Awesome.
So yeah, so it's all that. So those are all, crazy accounts to managers. Actually, to be honest, they've taught me a lot about more of the persistence of
For
follow up,
sure.
because Zillow has very, very high accountability. So we've applied that to all of our lead sources now.
Well, and so digging into that a little bit, just because I know some other, Zillow Flex partners and some teams and brokerages that have that same partnership. How do you think that, especially because they have such high standards, right, for follow up and conversion and all that, how has the online lead game kind of changed for y'all over the past few years? Because I know all of us saw in 2020 and 21, you picked up the phone, you showed a home and wrote a contract, right?
Yes.
How has that changed now, especially with what most would consider to be a pretty like ready lead source, right? Most Zillow connections are further down the funnel. How has your team's like lead follow up changed with those?
So I think, it's the same. It's like you said, you could just, go show someone a house and they would write a contract. On Zillow, you do have to win them over, right? Because they're not necessarily thinking of you as their agent when they first meet you. But it's a lot of follow-up. But now it's just a lot more phone calls. Basically, it's adding value to that person. Like, what is your value prop for them? Why should they want to use you when they can use anybody? So we're finding that, right now the lead flow from them is even slower than what it was. Like, they're not providing as many because they don't have as many leads. But, I wouldn't say our conversion is really down that much. The lead flow's down, but we're still usually one of the highest converting in the country right now with them. So
congratulations.
But
That's awesome.
but if you take that concept and you think, why do I take another company's leads and follow up so much and make the conversion so important, but then I don't do it with my own? We had good conversion, but now it's like, we've taken every lead source. As a matter of fact, Katie, getting seller connections 2 weeks ago, the required follow-up for them, I'm like, I have a lot of lead sources that I should be applying that to. So we're rolling it out on everything. So but it works, it really works.
Yeah. No, increasing the accountability and the expectation of what that follow-up looks like is so important. And kudos to you for recognizing that and being like, hey, if we're following up with this many times in this many days, we should be doing that with all of our leads, especially the ones that we've generated or whatever it may be. You had said something, I think, on a podcast. It was probably with Tom. And this was probably like 2 or 3 years ago, but it resonated with me. And it was something about how when you're working with a buyer, when you guys do a consultation, you make it like very clear. And I'm not sure if you guys still do this today or not, but you make it very clear of like, this is a mutual decision, right? Or something to that effect of like working together.
So we
Am I
kind of
jogging your
go
memory
from
here?
I actually took the whole aspect from Zillow again, because when they brought me on as a client, they said, hey, we want to onboard you as a partner. I thought, I like that. So with the buyers that we work with, we always tell them, like, in the marketplace you're in, that's where we're at. And we do a lot of work. We're specialized there. I feel that we would make a good team working together, and we would be willing to onboard you as a client to our group.
I like that. I really like that.
So it works out. Yeah. It makes them feel like it's, they're part of something great. And then we have a good cohesive relationship to work together. So it's better than saying, I need you to sign an exclusive right to represent buyer agreement. It sounds a lot better. So it works out.
But you're effectively doing the same thing. It's just the words you're choosing to use just make it sound a little softer, right? That they're being onboarded as a client. And I think that it's like a little bit of the exclusivity, right? Like, hey, like, we can onboard you as a client, with our team. Sounds a lot better than the alternative. So I like that.
Yeah. It works out really well. So
I like that.
It's tough out there, though. Everybody just has to work harder. As when you have markets like this, I've seen it in other trends when I've gone through the market over the last 30 years. And I think we'll see it, Katie, in January. I think you'll see in January, we'll see a lot of, thinning of the crowd with agents. There's a lot of agents in January that won't renew and won't stay on. So that's what happens when you have a shift in the market. So the people that are dedicated, that are willing to work and offer great service and learn new skills, those are the ones that will thrive in this market. So I feel like for agents, even though they're feeling a little bit of stress, we're feeling it, it still is a really big opportunity right now.
Well, and I'm not sure about you, but I've seen kind of an uptick of people inquiring to see if we're hiring right now or not. And I know I've talked to a lot of other team leaders right now, and agents are definitely seeking out teams, and agents that have been in the industry for a while, people that by normal standards would generally want to be an individual agent. I talked to someone the other day that sold 10 homes this year, which is a pretty good, amount, for an agent. And they were like, no, like, I want to find a team. I just need more structure. I need more accountability. Are y'all seeing that as far as agents like reaching out to the team?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm having the same thing. I had I have 2 agents I bought on in the past few months, and one of them sells like 20 homes, and the other one sells around 22. So, but they're feeling the pressure of this market. And as you know, Katie, I know you put a lot into your team and your systems and organization, and um, it's those things are not easy to put in place, especially when the market is a little bit stressed. So
Yeah.
it's a lot to do. So I think, for people coming onto a team that already has the systems in place that they can come in and operate and sell is that, very valuable. So
What advice would you give to someone if they were looking to scale their team? Because I know you said that you guys have been growing pretty much over the past year and a half, 2 years. More, a little bit faster than you had previously, right? And you're continuing to scale for next year to hit y'all's goals and things like that. So, what advice would you give to someone if they were looking to scale their team?
So I think for anybody that's looking to scale, whether you're trying to scale as an agent, as a team, I do think teams are super important in the market. I feel like if you're not going to own a team, you need to join one. But really, to scale, it's just a matter of for me, the way I do it is by having people need to make more calls, be available, and be proactive about getting business. Because the more business that you get, the more clients you have, the more referrals you get, the more money you get, the more you can buy Google PPC ads. So it just all you have to just start with a couple pillars. And like you said, some people will go in and buy the leads and start there. And I guess you could do it that way. I just didn't.
Yeah.
I started by bringing the business in by sweat equity instead of check equity, and then built it off of that. But for me, I feel like it was a little bit stronger of a foundation because we had the resources to do it.
Yeah.
But it's just like winning a client over. It's the same way of helping your the people on your team. You have to have a good solid value proposition of
Yeah.
what you're going to offer and why you. So that's kind of what we have core values, and we have our way that we run, and that's how all of our team members that come on are. So yeah.
Well, and so I know you all have scaled to multiple states.
Mm-hmm.
What issues did y'all have, or what problems did y'all have along the way that if someone else was like, oh, hey, I'm in this city or this state and I'm going to expand to other, have an expansion team or how did that guy, I guess first, how did it kind of come about for y'all?
So the thing that's really unique about me, so people go into different areas, I could see like if the area was, an hour away, that would be hard. I will say I'm in a very unique area because I sit right in the middle of Loudoun County, and I am literally, when you're in my office at that spot, I'm 20 minutes to Maryland, 20 minutes to West Virginia. So we kept having people cross the line, and the problem is that we kept trying to find referral agents, but we weren't getting the expectations of service and availability that we wanted. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and get licensed there. And it was just to help. And then the next thing you knew, it just, I think we were already number one in the state of Virginia. And then it was only a couple of years we were number one in the state of West Virginia, and now we're number one in the state of Maryland. So
just taking over.
So it's like, yeah, then you just end up doing a lot more there. So so for me, I have, I would say the majority of people on my team have license in all 3 states. So whichever state you're licensed in, you work. But we're able to keep people within our office in all 3 states. So that works out a little bit better for us.
Well, and so I guess the first thing, that I'm hearing is like making sure that you have a business need there, or you have some sort of lead source that would provide you business in that state, right? Because I think a lot of people similar to what you're saying, like especially in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic and stuff like that, like the states are pretty close together, right? So if you're on a border, you might be like, oh yeah, it totally makes sense for me to get licensed in North Carolina and South Carolina. But if you don't have that business, it may not just make sense to get your license.
Yeah, I think you would have to go in and just start all over. We definitely had resources for people that had needs, but then, but it just kind of evolved out of the need for to have a license there. So
well, and then at that point, I don't know, when did you get your license in the other states?
So of course, when I would say probably, well, I've been licensed in West Virginia now for 20 and Maryland
Okay.
about maybe 15 years.
Okay.
So yeah.
All
So
right.
I've had the West Virginia because they're so close. I mean, people just
No,
cross
for
states
sure.
all the time. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's like for us here in Texas, like that would be like someone moving from like Houston to Dallas or Houston to Austin, or you know what I mean? Because they're a couple hours away, but like, for y'all, it's like it could be 20 minutes away and you're in another state.
Yeah,
If you're right on the
exactly. For
line.
you, it would
So
be huge to go to another area. So, because you guys have, Texas is so big, right? But here you can, yeah, you can just jump from state to state with no problem. So, yeah.
yeah. Okay. If you were a brand new agent today, just switching gears a little bit here, if you're a brand new agent today, what would you be doing if you didn't have any business, you didn't have any past clients? Like what advice could you give to someone that, got in because they wanted to sell homes and, is now realizing that the market's a little bit tougher than maybe they thought?
So I definitely for a new agent would say find yourself a good team. Like, because I think it's really tough for somebody as an individual to start out right now because it's just there's a lot of things that need to be learned in the market before you start selling. So I think join a team, or you would have to do a lot of coaching and training to figure out how to get started, one or the other. But I think joining a team is the best thing for a new agent. And then they just got to be willing to make a lot of calls, be willing to work hard, and be persistent because you may not have the success that you want. And I think that's where Katie, most people, would put a lot out and then get frustrated after a couple months that nothing's working. But they have to be willing to work past that because that's what makes an agent successful.
I like that, and I love the thought of persistence in a world where everyone is on social media talking about how great they are and all of their accolades and this and that, and there are a ton of awards out there that my mom said I was the number one realtor in her heart, right, kind of thing. How would you find a good team? Like what would you do if you were looking to join a team? Because I feel like a lot of times what different brokerages or teams or things like that put out on social media, you're like, oh man, I've got to go join ABC Realty because they are just crushing it. And then you get there and like, you're like, huh, you have no training, you have no this, you have no that, right? Like
Yeah.
what advice would you give to someone if they just got in and they're looking for a team or they're looking for a brokerage, like either questions to ask or like what would you do like to find if you were moving
So
to Iowa
for
tomorrow?
Yeah, for me, I think for anyone, and I have had, clients call me with their kids that are in different markets and ask how to get started. I always say to look for a team. Like we know there's different kind of teams, right? You have teamerage, you have, brokers that are like a team, you
Yeah.
have collaborative teams, you have lead teams. I think that in my opinion, that that someone in order to have a chance to be successful out of the gate needs to look for someone that has somewhat of a lead team because, or at least collaborative. So at least 50% of the leads are given to them of their business. And then look for the stability of the team. Like when you have high turnover, that may not be a good place to go. Like I think if you have lower turnover and and agents, you have longer term agents, then
Yeah.
people are happy and they're being taken care of and they care. So
Yeah. So if
that's
everyone on the team's been there for 3 months, that might not be the
that
best
might
fit.
not be a good sign, or yeah. And so I don't know. I mean, I think it's kind of important because I know for me, everybody on our team is super collaborative and they work
Yeah.
together really well. And I think that's it's good for the the team culture and and morale of everybody to support each other. So
Yeah. No, I always find it interesting because teams are always wildly different, right? As far as like what their level of expectation is for phone calls and for, like as you said, you guys do like prospecting, via Zoom and different things like that to where, you are being collaborative and you're working together on things. I know y'all have been doing the calls on Zoom for probably 3+ years because I know I
yeah.
heard about it in 2020. What did you do to get the buy-in of your team as
So
far as the
I
calls go?
So for me, it's not really a buy-in. For me, when I go through the interview process, I make sure like that you want growth and you want movement in your
Okay.
life, and you're trying to change and you're willing to put in the work. Because I put a lot into my systems
Yeah.
and what I do. I'll probably work harder than anybody on the team. Hopefully not for too many more years, but they have to want that already, because if
Yeah.
they come on and they're not, I'm not saying that everybody has to, like, have an unbalanced life or work. I have some people that work like crazy, and then, some people that have more normal lives. But you do have to have good work ethic. Like, that's just a
Yeah.
given. Like, if somebody doesn't have good work ethic, there's just, they're probably not going to make it with my team.
Yeah.
And maybe that's something that someone should look for too, because maybe some teams have a little less accountability and you want a more relaxed lifestyle. That can matter too, right? So,
Yeah.
but
So setting the expectation from the beginning, and
yeah,
having that conversation before they're even added to the team, right? You're leading by example, right? You're in there, doing it as well, and putting in the effort. So I love that. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah. We all work together. I'm still doing it. I don't do it as much, but I do still do it with them. But I'm
Yeah.
probably not on there very long anymore. So I have a lot of other things to do, Katie, like you do.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you. I'm going to hit you with one last question, and it's the
Yes.
one question that I ask everyone on the podcast, and that is, if it were your last meal on earth, what would you be eating?
Oh, that would be a tough one, but I'd have to say probably a tenderloin and mashed potatoes.
All right, I like it. I like it. If someone doesn't already follow you on social, where would be the best place for them to connect with you?
I think it would, just on Instagram, it's the Carolyn Young Team.
Perfect.
So yeah, feel free to. And I appreciate you having me on, Katie. You're awesome. So it was nice to spend time with you.
It was awesome to learn from you and hear so much of your wisdom. I appreciate you so much, and I hopefully will see you soon.
All right. Thank you, Katie.